The exercise files for today's course are located in the video description below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Trish Connor-Cato, and this is Tableau Introduction. Tableau is a visual analytics platform that makes it easier for people to explore and manage data and faster to discover and share insights that can change businesses. It helps people and organizations be more data-driven. Tableau supports data prep, analysis, governance, collaboration, and more. This Tableau basic training course is designed as an introduction to Tableau for beginners. On completing the course, students will have a firm grasp of the basic techniques required to create visualizations and combine them in interactive dashboards. Specifically, students will meet the following learning outcomes, among others: formatting a visualization for appearance, adding value to analysis. Thank you for viewing this Tableau introductory course. So we've done a little formatting here and there, but now we're really going to focus in Module 6 on formatting a visualization to look great and work well. So in the first lesson, we'll go over some formatting consideration. And in the second lesson, we'll cover how formatting works in Tableau. Both of those are going to be on the slide. When we get to lesson 3, we will be hands-on for the rest of the module, adding value to visualizations. Let's review some formatting considerations before we get hands-on. As you change the look and feel of your work, use a biggest to smallest workflow. That means start by formatting fonts and titles at the workbook level, then move on to the worksheet level. Say formatting the individual parts of a view for last. A workbook is the largest possible container for formatting changes, and if you make changes at the workbook level first, it could save you time. In terms of formatting visualizations, it is recommended that you use consistent coloring across them so your users have a visually appealing experience. As stated on the previous slide, you can format at the workbook level and the worksheet level. That's going from the largest inwards to the smallest parts, which are the individual parts of the view. So you can format them. For example, you can format a single field, you can resize cells and tables, you can edit individual axes. All of this type of formatting in the view portion is done from the format pane, and you've been exposed to the format pane already. So let's go ahead and get hands-on and focus on formatting in this module. So now what we're going to do is we're going to navigate to a specific sheet. We have about 13 or 14 worksheets in this workbook at this point. So the easiest way to do this in Tableau is I'm going to point to these arrows right underneath the current sheet name. So those are your navigational arrows. The first one will take you to the first sheet. Well, it will scroll you so you can see the first sheet. The second one will move you over sheet by sheet. The third one, to the left. The third one will move you over sheet by sheet to the right. And the last one will take you to the last sheet, which we're currently on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the first one, and that brings the first few sheets into view. And I'm going to select the Sales by State Market Segment sheet. And we're going to start by formatting the workbook. And to do that, we're going to go to the Format menu and choose Workbook. So the Format pane opens on the left like it typically does. At the top, it just says Format Workbook. And what we can format at the workbook level are the fonts and lines. So underneath fonts, we're going to change the font for all of the workbook objects. So worksheets, tooltips, titles, dashboard titles, story titles. If we use all of those categories will change to the same thing. So we're going to go to the all drop down, and we want to actually change the font. The default font is Tableau Book. You can do the drop down next to the font And there's a lot of different fonts that you can choose from in Tableau. I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom, and I'm going to choose Zilla Slab Medium. And notice that it updated already on this sheet that we're on. It also updated for the entire workbook. So if I go to the next sheet, Profit Over Time, I see that it has that same Zilla Slab Medium font. I'm going to go back to Sales by State and Market Segment. Notice that it carried that Zilla Slab Medium all the way down to worksheets, tooltips, so on and so forth. And we decide that we want a consistent color for our fonts throughout the workbook. So we're going to go back to the All drop down. And in the color grid, you're going to select the darkest green color that you can see. And we're going to make the font, and you can do this over to the right. We're going to make the font for all. And then at the worksheet level in the format pane, we're going to make the font larger. So we're going to change the 9 to 12 point at the worksheet level. And you can see the changes immediately on this table. So notice that it has the titles are also in that dark green, and they're 15 point by default. We don't have any dashboard or story titles at this time. Now, the other thing you can format at the workbook level is you can format lines. So under lines, it just has grid lines. And you can do the drop down and see that there are several other different line types. You drop down next to more underneath grid lines. There are other line types that you can alter. I'm going to just do, if I look underneath the last one, I'm going to do less to collapse that. And we can go ahead and save our workbook. Now, let's say you did a lot of formatting changes at the workbook level, and then you decide you don't like them, you want to go back to the original. All the way at the bottom, you have that Reset to Defaults button that you could click to get it back to the way it was originally. We're not going to click that. Now, at the visualization level on this sheet, we're going to make some formatting changes. The first thing we want to do is we want to right click at the top where it says Market Segment / Category. Right click there and choose Hide Field Labels for Columns. We don't need that there. That's more of a cleanup move, but it's also considered formatting. And you notice how the technology column, it's being cut off. So I'm going to put my mouse to the right of technology in the consumer market segment. And I'm going to just click and hold and drag a little bit to the right. So now you can see the full word, and you only have to do it once, and it does it for your other panes. We're going to right click on Market Segment and choose Show Filter. So that filter shows up on the right. And we're going to do the same thing for State Province. Show the filter. Now, when you show the State Province filter, go over to the filter panel on the right and do the drop down to the right of State Province. And notice it defaults to a multiple values list. We're going to select multiple values drop down so it doesn't take as much room in that filter panel on the right. And now we're going to go to the drop down again next to State Province filter in the right pane. And we're going to choose Format Filter and Set Controls. And in the formatting pane on the left, we're going to change the body shading to dark green. And we're going to change the font to white. And you can see that it formatted both of those filters in the right pane. Dark green body with white font. Something else that will give your users more functionality is you can hover over the State Province column heading, and you'll see the little plus sign above it. When you click that, it now shows the city level of detail. Now it's a minus sign. If you click it, it goes back to state. And that's the same as clicking the plus sign in the rows shelf. But if you were to include this viz on a dashboard, the columns and rows shelf won't be there. So that's another way to teach your users how to expand to get more detail. Now, the next thing we're going to do before we continue formatting this table is we want to add the grand totals for rows and columns to this table. And to do that, we're going to go to the Analytics pane on the left. And you're going to click and hold on totals and start dragging it over to your table, and you'll see the add totals pop up. We're going to drop it in column grand totals. And so if you look at the bottom of your table, you have a grand total for every column. We're going to drag totals over again, and this time drop it on row grand totals. And now to the right, we have a grand total for every row. And that one we want to rename. So we're going to right click on the grand total column heading, and we're going to choose format, and that opens on the left, and you'll see the label at the bottom underneath grand totals. At the end of grand total, you're going to change it to grand totals by state and press enter, and you'll see it update. So now let's take a look at the analysis menu. And when you access it, hover over totals. So we could have done our grand totals here. You see both row and column grand totals are checked. You can change the position of your row and column totals if you'd like. You can add subtotals here. And you can also change the aggregate calculation that's being used. It's defaults to automatic, which is sum, but if you wanted an average, minimum, or maximum, you could get that as well. And we can click away from that menu. So now we're going to give our worksheet a color, and we want to give it like a light gray background shading. So I'm going to just right click anywhere in my table and go to format. And over on the left, we're going to choose the paint bucket to get to shading. And for the worksheet, we're going to do the drop down, and I'm going to select the lightest gray color, the one right underneath white, just for a little bit of contrast. And the last thing we're going to do here is we're going to select a workbook theme. And so again, it's called workbook theme, so it applies to the entire workbook. And we do that by going to the format menu. And almost at the bottom, we're going to select workbook theme or hover over it. And let's look at classic first. So you can see what the classic theme does. It centers the title. It also got rid of the word wrap for like office supplies. I think that was there before. It shaded the first column. It made the grand totals bold. So that is the classic theme. We're going to go back to format, workbook theme, and let's choose modern. So the modern theme gets rid of the shading in the first column and the bold grand totals. It basically centers the title, and it doesn't get rid of the word wrap for the office supplies column. Now, if we like this theme and we want to get rid of the word wrap, we can just expand that column width by putting your mouse on the divider line between office supplies, technology, and dragging just a little bit to the right. And I might have dragged it a little bit too much, so I'm going to drag it back. I don't want it to be any wider than it needs to be. And if by doing this, it causes a scroll bar, which it does here at the bottom, I'll probably get rid of that and live with the word wrap. When I can avoid it, I don't like having scroll bars. So I managed to size it so I got rid of the word wrap and I don't have a scroll bar for this visualization. So kind of happy with that one. So I'm going to keep the modern theme. And let's go ahead and save. Let's go to our next sheet. Profit over time. This one, we're just going to give it that same light gray background. So your format shading pane is still open on the left. And you can just go to your worksheet and select that palest gray color. And we want to change the line to green in line with everything else that we've done. We're going for consistency here. You don't want to overwhelm your users with bunches of different colors in different visualizations. And so we're just going to go to the color box on the marks card, and I'm going to select that darkest green color. Let's go to the next sheet and repeat the same process there. And notice that the fonts that we chose and the theme that we chose are applying to all of these sheets. We just have to do, that's why they say it's better to do it at the workbook level first, because it saves you time. You don't have to do it on every sheet. You don't have to do certain things on every sheet. So repeat the same steps on the next sheet, percentage of total sales by region. And what's helpful and makes this more efficient is that format shading pane will stay open until you close it. And on sales by profit and quarter, we do want different complementary color lines, because we're showing two measures here with our dual axis chart. So we're going to just go ahead and give it the shading, our light gray shading. But then what we want to do is right-click on your profit axis and choose Format. And we want to make this, you're going to do the font drop down and make it bold. And do the same for your sales axis. Make that one bold as well. Go ahead and save your workbook. So we're going to continue formatting some more sheets in this workbook, but as we move forward in the course, we'll do our formatting as we go. Now, a lot of times I like to create all of my visualizations and then go back and do all the formatting, but in this case, we'll continue to format as we go when we proceed. So let's go to aggregate calculation sheet, and that's where I put that horrendous green background. And I'm going to change that to our lightest gray like we did before. The other thing I'm going to do on this sheet, since I'm here, is I want to format. Well, let's do the drop down next to measure names filter in the right pane. And let's do edit title. And instead of measure names, we're going to call it cost and profit, and click OK. And then we want to format them. So it looks like this month of order date has that green format. I'm going to do the drop down on month of order date, and I'm going to do format filter and set controls. And I'm going to give it that dark green shading like we did on previous pages. And then I'm going to go to the font drop down and choose white. So this one didn't do both at the same time. I'm going to go, so this one is not going to let me, well, edit colors, it'll let me do that, but format legends. Yeah, so that one I have to go to format legends. That's interesting. It did both of them earlier, but now it's doing one at a time, but that's okay. So for the body, I'm going to do that dark green shading. And then for the font, I'll make it white. They kind of match over there. All right, let's see what's in store for us on the row level calculation sheet. So this one, easy fix. You can just go to color and change it to our green. And then you know how to do your shading for the worksheet. You can go ahead and do that. Let's also edit the title on this one. So we're going to get rid of sheet name. We're going to leave it centered, and that's because of the modern theme that we're using. And this one will be sales by year per ship mode and do OK on that. So what I'm going to have you do is just pause the video, go through the remaining sheets, and use whatever formatting options you want to use. But just remember some of the basics. You want consistency, but play around with it. We are not going to use any of these current visualizations on the dashboard. We're going to create new ones in the next module, in which we'll create our dashboard. So go ahead and pause and just go ahead and do some formatting. Play around with it. So on my last sheet, I changed my state province filter so that it is a multiple value drop down. And then I formatted it so it has the dark green background and the white text. I formatted my column and row field labels as bold in this one as well. And I applied the gray background shading. Let's go ahead and save our workbook. In Module 6, we focused on formatting a visualization to look great as well as work well. We made our visualizations, our existing visualizations, more appealing and understandable in this module. We started by reviewing formatting considerations and how formatting works in Tableau. And we learned that we should start at the outermost level, which is the workbook level, and then move on to the worksheet level, and then the visualization level. And by doing that, we can save a lot of time. So we started with the workbook level by choosing a font and font color, and then we adjusted the font size at the worksheet level. We then learned how to add and format filters before adding grand totals and also formatting them. We learned how to apply shading at the worksheet level, and then used the modern workbook theme, which applied to all of our sheets. We applied formatting to our other worksheets, even formatting axes. Then you had the opportunity to work on your own to format the remaining sheets in the workbook. Now, sometimes, as I mentioned, I'd like to build out all of my worksheet visualizations, focusing on the data and how I want the visualization or what I want the visualization to be. And then I'll do a second pass and focus on formatting. Other people like to format as they go, and that's what we're going to do for the continuing modules in this course. Our 7th module is telling a data story with dashboards. So in this module, we'll start with dashboard objectives and definitions. Then when we get hands-on, we'll start creating visualizations to use on our dashboard and or story. Then we'll create a dashboard, add interactivity to a dashboard, create a story, and add story points. The objective of a dashboard is letting you compare a variety of data simultaneously. So it is a collection of several views, several worksheets, and it's an at-a-glance feature. Dashboards have actions that add context and interactivity. Users interact with your visualizations by selecting marks or hovering or clicking a menu, and the actions you set up can respond with navigation and changes in the view. There are 5 dashboard actions, and I'll tell you what they are in just a moment. A story is a sequence of visualizations that work together to convey information. It can be a series of dashboards and or worksheets. And it's used to create a data narrative, provide context, demonstrate how decisions relate to outcomes, or simply make a compelling case. Each individual sheet in a story is known as a story point. And then we have the 5 actions, and you'll see some more, but you can filter, highlight, go to a URL, go to a sheet, or change set values via dashboard actions. Now we're going to create the first of the 4 visits we're going to use on our dashboard. So let's go ahead and bring up a new worksheet. And on this one, we're going to want order date, category, and subcategory in columns. And then drag the sales measure to rows. So now we have a column chart. You'll notice that it's showing the order date, the category, and then the subcategory. And the order dates and the categories are showing at the top. It's broken out by the subcategories at the bottom. Let's drag profit to detail on the marks card. And then when you hover over any mark in your column chart, you'll see that the value of profit is there for that category, subcategory, and year of order date, as well as the sales value. Let's right-click on sum of profit and show filter. So of course it shows up on the right. And I just want to show you a quick way. So it goes from a range of negative 22,000 and some more to positive 22,000. So what we're going to do is we want to filter for just the profit that's negative. If I hover over the right-hand value and I click on it, it selects the whole thing. I'm going to type a 0 and press enter. So now our column chart has updated to just show the items with negative profit. If you hover over any of those marks, the profit is negative. And then we're going to use the funnel with the X to clear that filter. Let's also show filters for order date and subcategory. And for the subcategory filter, let's make it a multiple values drop down. And then we want to format those filters so that they match our previous formatting. So we're going to open up the format filter and set controls. And we're going to give it the dark green shading and the white text, just so we have consistency. Now at this point, we want to do the other typical formatting we've been doing. So we want our columns to be dark green. We want our sheet background to be the light gray. So go ahead and do your columns dark green and your sheet background to light gray. And again, that gives us consistency for our visualizations. Now, if you wanted to make different color choices, go ahead and do that, but just be consistent over these 4 visualizations that we're going to be putting on our dashboard. Now we're going to add another dimension to our view, just temporarily. We want to do some investigating. So let's go ahead and put region in the rows shelf in front of sales. And then let's go over to our sum of profit filter, and we're going to do the drop down. And notice it defaults to a range of values. We're going to select at most. Notice the first number is dimmed out. You can't change it. We're going to go click on the second number and let it select the whole thing. And we're going to type minus 5,000 and press enter. So we'll see if we hover over these columns here, right? And this is for binders and machines, the subcategories of binders and machines. But we'll see that the central region has negative 22,000 and change profit for 2019. And we'll notice that the eastern region has negative 7,000 and change for profit for 2020. So we're going to keep that in mind, the central and eastern regions, for our next visualization. What we're going to do in the meantime is we're going to go up to the rows shelf, click on region, and delete it. We're going to go back over to we're going to clear our profit filter, and we're going to go back to its drop down and change it back to range of values. And then go ahead and save your file. Let's duplicate our Viz1 sheet and name the sheet Viz2. And on the Viz2 sheet, we're going to drag region to the rows shelf in front of sum. And then we're going to right click on region and choose filter. We're going to select none underneath the regions and then just check central and east and click OK. Now we're going to go to our sum of profit. And if I do the drop down, it's still on range of values. We're going to do at most. We're going to select the second number and type minus 5,000 and press enter. And so we're just showing what we showed on the other Viz, right? But we just want to show the negative profit greater than 5,000. So let's right click on the title and edit the title. We're going to select all by doing Control A, and we're going to type negative profit. We're going to do the greater than symbol, 5,000 by region and subcategory, and click OK. And on this one, we're going to go ahead and hide our subcategory, order date, and profit filters. So I'm going to just hide the card for each of them. And because we duplicated this, all of our formatting has come over as well, so we're good there. Go ahead and save your workbook. So let's move on to our next visualization for the dashboard by creating another new sheet. And let's go ahead and name this sheet Viz3. For this one, we're going to create a map with the sales by state, and then we'll have profit values also show in the tooltip. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to double click on the state province field, and notice it puts it as detail in the marks card. And it also included the next level up in the hierarchy, which is country region. If you look in columns and rows, you have longitude generated and latitude generated. So when you add geographic role type data, it automatically generates longitude and latitude. And you can see that it's assigned a geographic role because of the globe to the left of the field. And let's drag sales to detail. So I kind of got it in there twice, one in detail, one in size. Let's drag sales to detail on the marks card. And now we have the circles representing the sales. If we hover over a circle on the map, you'll see the country, region, state, province, and the sum of the sales. Now we're going to drag profit to tooltip. Now when we hover, we can see the profit values as well. Let's show the order date filter and change the color of the filter to the dark green background with white text. We're also going to change the size and color of the marks on the map. So we're gonna click on size first, and we're gonna adjust the size so they're slightly larger than they are now. And then we're gonna click on color and give them the dark green color. And I'm gonna close that format filter and set control pane that I left open. And we're gonna edit the title, and it's gonna be sales by state map with profit values, and click OK. Let's go ahead and save our file. Before moving on to our next visualization, I'm going to go ahead and format the sheet here with the same light gray shading. The map is taking up almost the whole view, but at the top and around the edges, you'll see that it's starkly white. And this is good for consistency's sake. So I'm going to just right click and go to Format, go to my paint bucket, and just use the regular light gray, lightest gray that we've been using for the others. And we can go ahead now and duplicate this sheet for our next visualization. And I will say, I know that I said we were going to only do 4 visualizations for the dashboard, but I thought of another one, so we're actually going to do 5. Let's name the duplicated sheet Viz 4. And this one, we're going to edit the title, and it's going to be total sales by top 20 cities, and click OK. And now we're going to drill down on the state field in the marks card by clicking the plus sign in front of it, so that we get the city field to display in the map as well. And now when you hover over a mark, you have the city, country, state, profit, and sales. Now all we need to do is apply a filter to the city field. So I'm going to right click on city and go to filter. So far we've used the general tab on the filter. There's also a wildcard tab where you can say that it contains certain values, starts with, end with, or exactly matches. You have a condition tab at the top where you can give it a condition. So by field, you might have sales. We're not going to actually do this type of filter, but since I'm here, the sum of sales that's greater than some number, that would be a condition. We're going to just go back to the none option on that one. And we ultimately want to go to the top tab. So top in. We're going to do by field. You can choose either top or bottom from the drop down. We're going to leave it on top. We're going to change the 10 to a 20. And then where it says by and underneath that category, we're going to do the drop down and select sales. So we want it to filter for the top 20 cities based on the sum of sales. And we're going to go ahead and click OK. Now I want to show you some of the map controls that are useful. And if you hover over the upper left corner of the map, you'll see the controls show up. If they don't show up, you can right click on your map, go to map options, and then you would say show view. You would make sure show view toolbar is checked. Now, if I want to reset the map, I can use the push pin with the X on it. If I hover over the right pointing arrow, the first one is zoom area. The second one, the four-headed arrow, is pan, and that's a useful one to use. If I have it on pan, then I can actually drag the mouse or the map around a little bit. Now, we've applied a top 20 filter, but I just want to show you something. Let's go over to the year of order date and uncheck all and select 2019. 2019 doesn't have as many sales, so it's not 20 cities that are showing here. It's the top however many cities. If I uncheck 2019 and check 2020, same thing, 2021, and then uncheck the other one, and then 2022. So they have varying numbers of sales. Let's put it back on all. And we're going to change the title to say, instead of 20, we're going to say N, because depending on the filter that's applied, the number will vary. Or we could even get rid of the N and just say total sales by top cities. And that, yeah, I think I'm going to do that. Edit title and just get rid of the N placeholder for any number. Okay. And let's save our file again. And for our last viz for our dashboard, I promise this is the last one. We're going to create a new sheet and name the sheet Viz 5. And then we're going to drag country region to rows. And we're going to drag state province also to rows. And I'll show you another way to add fields to the view. Let's right click on the sales field. And we're going to choose add to sheet. And that's the same as dragging it to text on the marks card. We're going to do the same with the profit measure, add that to the sheet as well. Let's show the order date filter, as well as the state province filter. And for the state province filter, let's make it a drop down. You're going to move the order date filter so it's on top, it's above the state province filter. So just get your four-headed arrow and drag it up until the black guideline is above state and province. While you're over there, go ahead and format your filters the way we've been formatting them. So, and I'll make the font white. And then since all of our states, and notice we don't have Alaska and Hawaii on the list, our data doesn't include those two states, we decide we don't need to see the country. So I'm going to just click on country region in the rows shelf and then delete. Then we want the sales field to show up first, the sales column. So I can click on the column heading. And when I put my mouse on the top of it, I can click and hold and then start dragging it. Now you'll see when it says you can't drop it, I'm going to point right in front of profit and let go. So I can flip-flop those. And then we want to do our calculation, our formatting on sales. You know, we want the currency with no decimal places. And for profit, we're going to do our custom number format so the negatives are in parentheses. So I'm going to right-click on sum of sales in the marks card under measure values. And I'm going to choose format. And so for the numbers, I'm going to just do drop down. I'm doing currency custom so I can get rid of the decimal places and then click away from that. And then I'm going to do the same thing on sum of profit. And I'm going to do the drop down for numbers, choose custom, click in the format box, and it's going to be $, pound, comma, pound, 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 semicolon, open paren, $, pound, comma, pound, 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 closing paren. So the negative numbers will be in parentheses for the profit. And I decided not to do the $sign and the minus sign. The fact that they're in parentheses indicates to me it's a negative number. And I'm going to go ahead and close that pane. And now we just need to format the background of the sheet and give it a title. So I'm going to do my light gray background shading on the worksheet. And let's add a grand total at the bottom. So I'm going to go to the Analytics tab, grab totals, start dragging it over, and it only allows me column grand totals. It can't do it by the row because they're two different fields there. So I'm getting the sales, total sales at the bottom, total profit at the bottom. And edit the title to be sales and profit by state. And okay. And go ahead and save. Now we're ready to create our first dashboard. We're going to end up creating 3 dashboards, and then I'm going to give you the opportunity to create your own dashboard on your own, and I will do one on my own and show you mine at the end. So let's go ahead and do the new dashboard box. And the first thing we're going to do is let's look at the dashboard tab on the left. It's set to default, which means to be viewed on a computer versus a phone. We're going to leave that. We're going to do the drop down next to size, and I'm going to put in the size that fits my screen. It has to do with kind of monitor you have and the resolution and sizing of that and everything. So I'm going to make mine 1500 width and 900 height, and you can see my canvas area expanded. And then I'm going to collapse size by clicking the arrow to the right of what's now custom. And you have all the sheets in your workbook listed underneath. And you probably have to scroll because we have a lot of sheets in this workbook. And so when it's time for you to create a dashboard on your own, you can use any of the worksheets in the workbook for your dashboard. The ones that we're going to use for the 3 that we do together are Viz 1 through Viz 5. Underneath all your sheets, you have an object panel. So you might want to put text, add more text or link to a web page, that kind of stuff. And all the way at the bottom under objects, we're going to check the box that says show dashboard title, and it shows up at the top. And we're going to edit the title, and the title, just like on a sheet, it wants to take the name of the sheet, but we want to give it a separate title. The title is going to be Sales and Profit by State, and click OK. So now we're ready to add our visualizations. For this one, we're going to use Viz 1 and Viz 5. So I'm going to click and hold on Viz 1 and drag it and drop it onto the canvas. And then I want Viz 5 to be to the right of Viz 1. But before we do that, we're not going to keep all of its filters. Let's click on the profit filter, do its drop down arrow, and remove the filter from the dashboard. And now we're ready to click and hold on Viz 5, and we're going to drag it onto the canvas. Now, if I let it go right now, you see the gray shadings on the left. It will be to the left of the column chart. I'm going to drag it around. Now it would be underneath the column chart. I'm going to drag it to the right side so the shading's on the right, and I'm going to let it go. Now that table, the sales and profit by state table, doesn't need to be in that wide of a pane. So on the left side of it, I'm going to, and it's selected. You can tell because you see the black selection tool at the top. I'm going to put my mouse on the left side so it looks like a double-headed arrow, click and hold, and drag to the right about that much. So your column chart gets more space and the table is appropriately wide. Now with the table, it came with a state province filter and a year of order date filter. And we're going to remove both of its filters from the dashboard. And then we're going to select sales and profit by state table again. And we want to get rid of its title. So I'm going to right click on the title and hide it. And what I'm going to do is I'm also going to hide the title on our column chart. And we're going to set up the table to be used as a filter. So I'm going to go back and select the table, go to its drop down on the right. And when I go to the drop down, I can choose use as filter. Another way you can do the same thing is if I select the table and I look at there's an X button, which means remove it from the dashboard. The next button, you can go to that sheet instead of having to navigate the sheet tabs yourself. It will take you to the sheet where that visualization resides. And the next one is use as filter. The funnel here means use as filter. So we're going to do it that way. And what that does here is let's click on California in the table. And it highlights the California data in the table, the sales and profit data. But it also updated. This column chart is now only showing for the state of California. And then if I click on California in the table again, I get the full list back. Let's format the background of our dashboard with our light gray shading. So I'm just going to go to Dashboard menu for this and go to Format. And then I have my dashboard shading right at the top, for consistency's sake. And let's name the dashboard. Actually, we should have named the dashboard itself, and then it would have carried over to its title. But we're going to use the same thing that we have in the title, Sales and Profit by State. And save your workbook. Before we create our second dashboard, I want to make some sizing changes to my canvas. So I'm going to just go over to size. I have all of this blank space to the right, so I want to use some more of that space. So I'm going to just adjust my width. And if you need to do the same with your sizing, go ahead. And now I got rid of a lot of that blank space. And I'm going to select my table. And I'm going to make it so it's not quite as wide so that I have more space for the chart. So now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and save my workbook again. And let's go ahead and create a new dashboard sheet. Go ahead and adjust your sizing. So I'm just repeating the width and the height that I used on the previous one. And for this one, we're going to be using Viz 2 and Viz 3 side by side. Go ahead and set that up. So we have our negative profit greater than 5,000 by region and subcategory on the left. And we have our sales by state map with profit values. We can get rid of the title. We can hide the title for our map. And we're going to edit the title for our negative profit. And we're going to just get rid of by region and subcategory. So negative profit greater than 5,000. And now I'll bring my map into view. I'm just going to reset it. What we want to do is, because the map is by state, right? And this chart is by region, we want to add the states to the chart. And so in order to do that, we can't do that here. We're going to select our negative profit greater than 5,000, and we're going to use the go to sheet icon to get back to that sheet. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go and drag the state field to the rows shelf in between region and sum. So we can see for these two negative profits, one is from Texas, one is from Ohio. And now we can go back to our dashboard 2 page. Let's go ahead and name the page Sales and Negative Profit by State. Let's show our dashboard title and do your light gray shading on the dashboard if you haven't already. And I just want to show you something. If you have a sheet on a dashboard, you can't delete that sheet. So far we've used Viz 1, 2, 3, and 5. I'm going to right click on my Viz 1 sheet tab, and notice under rename you have hide instead of delete. That's because it's on a dashboard. Now, if I right click on my table calculations secondary calculation sheet tab, that's not on a dashboard, so I get delete instead of hide under rename. Just wanted to point that out to you. Let's go ahead and save this file and bring up a new dashboard sheet. Now let's go ahead and adjust our size for our canvas and go ahead and tell it to show the dashboard title and go to dashboard format and give it the light gray formatting, shading I should say. And I'm going to close format dashboard. So now I'm going to name the dashboard 3 sheet tab to be top sales by city. Press enter. And we're going to use Viz 4, so go ahead and drag it on. Our top sales by city map. Now we can hide the map's title. Don't need it to be duplicated there. Now hover over any mark on the map and you'll see what it shows in the tooltip. So what we're going to do now is we want to be able to go to our URL by using a dashboard action. So in order to do that, we're going to go up to the dashboard menu and we're going to choose actions. And I'm going to go to, so it defaults to showing actions for this workbook. I'm going to go to this sheet and then I'm going to add action underneath the grid and choose go to URL. So it gives it a default name of hyperlink 1. We're going to name it Learnit with an exclamation point. And then you'll notice under source sheets, it has Viz 4 selected, the top sales by city dashboard with Viz 4 selected. And to the right of that, you have 3 different actions, 3 different choices for running the action on. So the one we're going to use is menu, but let me tell you what they each mean. Hover means if you hover over a mark on the map, it's automatically going to open the browser and go to the URL. If you choose select, that means that if you click on any of the marks on the map, it will automatically open the browser window and go to the URL. I like menu because I would still have to click on the mark on the map, but in addition to everything in the tooltip, at the bottom will be a link with the name that we're putting in here. It will be a link that I can click on. So it gives me more control before going to the URL. And that's why I like menu. Under URL target, I'm going to select new browser tab. And then I'm going to click in the enter the URL box. If you look right under that box, you'll notice it already has the https://. All you have to do is type the rest of it. In our case, we're going to type learnit.com. And it changed it to an HTTP. And we're going to click OK. And it shows in this grid now. And we're going to click OK again. And we're going to test it. So I'm going to click on any mark on the map. And now once I click on it, you see at the bottom of the tooltip, it has the link for Learnit. And when I click on that, it opens up the browser window. And I just have to click anywhere else on the map to get all of my marks back. And let's go ahead and save the file again. When you add an image to a dashboard page, like a logo or something, you can have it linked to a URL as well. And so we're going to do that now. Under Objects, go ahead and drag Image. And I'm going to just drop it over to like where the filter pane is. We'll take care of where it's located in just a bit. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert an image file and I'm going to choose. Now in your files from video description, you have that Learnit logo. And I double clicked it. And then I can tell it or not a URL to open when the image is clicked. So I'm going to type in my http://learnit.com and I'm going to click OK. So now what I want to do is I want to do the drop down arrow to the left side of that image and I want to choose floating. And then I'm going to move it by grabbing its move handle at the top. And I'm just moving it down into the lower right-hand corner of the map in a blank area. And I can click away from it. So because we attached it, otherwise, I mean, if we didn't attach it to a URL, it would just be a logo image. But if you put your mouse pointer on the top of it, it looks like a hand, and you'll see the URL. And if you click it, it opens that page. So you have choices for a URL on a dashboard. So now what I'm going to have you do is pause the video and create another dashboard using whatever sheets that you want to use on it, and making adjustments like getting rid of unnecessary filters, maybe using one of your visualizations as a filter. And then when you're done and you resume the video, you'll see the extra dashboard that I've created. All right. I hope you are satisfied with the dashboard you created. What's showing on the screen is mine. And to be honest with you, I actually created another sheet, which is this one here, before I created my dashboard. So I have our key performance indicators on there. And then I have this new sheet that just shows the regions, the subcategories, and the sum of sales. On the bottom, I have this scatter plot chart that we created, and that would be our parameters and calculated sheet, because I wanted to have these parameters over here so that that chart can be updated by choosing different parameters. And then I have the legend over here for the KPI. Now, what I've also done is made my new table interactive. I'm using it as a filter. So if I click on any option in there, it filters the other two visualizations. And I'll click on it to get rid of the filter. The other thing I added was the web page object. Now, when you add the web page object, you still have to use the dashboard action of a URL. So when you add the object, it asks you the URL of the object. So I gave it a Wikipedia page that has information about US states. And then in my dashboard actions, I'll show you how I tied it to that. When I filled this out, I said menu again, and that's for the other ones. If I click on any point, any mark, it will give me the menu on the tooltip, the link on the tooltip for that web page. And then the URL target shows up as the web page object, and it has the URL down there. So I am going to click on accessories under the East region in my table. And when I do that, it filters the other charts, but it also gives me the Wikipedia link. And when I click that, it just opens up here. It doesn't actually open a web page. So I have all the information about all the different states right in here. And I'm going to clear that filter. So this is a web page object. It actually shows the web page on your dashboard. Go ahead and save your file if you haven't already. And then we're ready to move on to creating our story. And now we're ready to add our story sheet. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now on a story sheet, on the left side at the bottom is where you'll find your size. So go ahead and make any width and height adjustments necessary. And then I'm going to go up to the story menu, and I'm going to choose format, and I'm going to choose our default light gray shading. I'm going to close the format story pane. So when it comes to a story, you have all of the sheets in your workbook as well as all of the dashboards in your workbook. Now you can use them individually or in groups as what are known as story points. So we have our first sheet here, and what we're going to do is we're going to drag our sales and profit by state dashboard onto the canvas. Now, I could also drag another dashboard or another sheet for this story point, but since this one already has two visualizations that are somewhat related to each other, I'm going to leave them as their own story point and add a new one. So at the top of the story panel on the left, under New Story Point, we're going to select blank. And notice now we have two captions up here. Before we only had one. Now it's the same story, but it's just a new point, a new view. So for this one, I'm going to drag the sales and negative profit onto the canvas. I'm going to go up and choose another blank story point and top sales by city. Now, if you'd like to add the dashboard that you created, go ahead and do another blank story point like I'm going to do. And I name that dashboard regional information. And I'm going to drag it on here. So I have 4 different story points in the same story. Let's name the story and the tab. You can name the sheet tab. And we're going to call it Sales Information Superstore. And go ahead and save your file. So I can navigate through the story by using these directional arrows surrounding the captions. So I'm going to just do the back arrow until I'm on the first view of my story. The first thing I'm going to do when I get here is make sure that the year of order date filter is set to all. And the subcategory is already set to all. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I am going to hover over the 2 tallest bars. So the first one is for chairs, the subcategory. The second one is for phones. So in the first caption, I'm going to type, wow, exclamation point. We really increased sales of chairs and phones in 2022, exclamation point. And now by clicking on the second caption, that navigates me to the second view in our story. So that's another way to navigate. And so I look at this. This is negative profit that's greater than 5,000 and sales and negative profit by state. So what I'm going to say on this one is the caption is going to be, what can we do about increasing profit in Texas and Ohio? Question mark. Going to move to the third caption, and this one will be, these cities are topping us in sales. What are they doing that we can apply to the rest of the country? And then last but not least, you're going to do a caption based on whatever your dashboard is conveying. And so for mine, I said, we really need to ramp up so our KPIs are dramatically better. And I'm going to resize my story point so that so I can see the whole thing. And you can make them wider if you want to as well. Go ahead and save your file. The other thing I'll say here is that I'm back on the first view in our story. You may have to scroll down or across in a story. And I don't really mind having to do this in a story. I really don't like doing it on dashboards, but sometimes on a story it is necessary. The other thing you can do with a story, and we don't have to do this, but you can duplicate a story point and instead of doing a blank one like we did. Now this has a layout tab as well. So if you wanted to show if you don't want to show the arrows, you can get rid of them that way. That's one way of doing them. And we have caption boxes for the navigator. If you do the option button for numbers, you'll see the numbers of the views of your story. You can use dots, or you can have the arrows only. I prefer the captions because I can actually tell my story by using the captions. But sometimes I will just use arrows only. It just really depends, but I'd say 99.9% of the time I'm using the caption boxes. And I'm going to just go back to the story tab. And congratulations. So I snuck one more dashboard in on you and one more visualization in on you, but good practice. So in this extensive module, you learned how to tell a data story with dashboards. And so we had the opportunity to create more visualizations, which is good practice. And along the way, we learned how to apply a top-in filter and how to use map controls. We then created 3 dashboards using the visualizations in combination and individually. We learned how to use a visualization as a filter that will filter all other visualizations in the view. We saw that sheets cannot be deleted from the workbook when they are on a dashboard, only hidden. And we used the URL dashboard action to open a web page in a new browser window, and then learned how to add an image to a dashboard that can also function as a link to a web page. You had the opportunity to create another dashboard on your own, and I showed you the one I created as well. On mine, you learned about the web page object that can be added to a dashboard and how it connects to the URL dashboard action. We ended by adding a story with 4 story points and learned how to navigate the story views. We added captions to our story for all 4 points and resized the captions. We learned how to change the story navigation options if necessary. Module 8 is adding value to analysis, trends, distributions, and forecasting, and we have a lesson for each of those. Let's go over some terms and definitions. When you add trend lines to a view, you can specify how you want them to look and behave, and there are 5 model types for trends in Tableau, which I'll get into momentarily. We did a distribution band earlier, but we have the definition here. So reference distributions add a gradient of shading to indicate the distribution of values along the axis. Distribution can be defined by percentages, percentiles, quantiles, or standard deviation. And then forecasting in Tableau uses a technique known as exponential smoothing. Exponential smoothing models iteratively forecast future values of a regular time series of values from weighted averages of past values of the series. And lastly, we have the model types of trend lines. So you have linear, logarithmic, polynomial, power, and exponential. So just to make this simple, because again, the PowerPoint is included in the files for video description so that you have it for future reference. A linear trend line usually shows that something is increasing or decreasing at a steady rate. A logarithmic trend line can use negative and or positive values, and it's most useful when the rate of change in the data increases or decreases quickly and then levels out. Polynomial is used when data fluctuates. It's useful, for example, for analyzing gains and losses over a large data set. A power trend line is best used with data sets that compare measurements that increase at a specific rate. For example is the acceleration of a race car at 1 second intervals. And then exponential is most useful when data values rise or fall at increasingly higher rates. So you have that for your future reference, and we'll be using trend lines in this module. Let's navigate to our discrete versus continuous sheet tab. We're going to start by editing the title so it says sales by quantity, and then we're going to add a trend line to this line chart. Let's switch to the Analytics tab on the left, and we're going to click and hold on Trend Line under Model. And when we drag it onto our canvas, we'll see the 5 different types. I dropped it on Linear. Let's right-click anywhere on our trend line, and we're going to go over the options on this menu, but I'm going to start at the bottom. So when you add a trend line, it defaults to show recalculated line. Well, I'm going to click away from the menu, and a recalculated line will automatically show if you click on any marks on your viz. So I'm going to just click on this mark right here, and you can see the recalculated line as the original line is faded in the background. Now I can click away from it. Let's right-click on the trend line again. Above Show Recalculated Line, let's go to Describe Trend Model. And a dialog box opens up, and it's breaking down the calculations and the computations for this trend lines model. So it says a linear trend model is computed for sum of sales given quantity. And it has a lot of different values in here. It's breaking down the model formula, quantity plus intercept, the number of modeled observations, 14, number of filtered, 0. It's giving you all the values here, sum squared error, mean squared error, R squared, standard error. And at the bottom, it continues for individual trend lines. So it's showing you the different coefficients there. The coefficient term, the value, the standard error, t-value, p-value. Now, this is why I rely on software to calculate trend models for me, because I'm not up to that level of calculation. This could also be copied as you see in the bottom right corner. We're going to close that. Let's right-click on our line again. And this time at the top, we're going to go to Describe Trend Line. So we already saw the trend model description. So let's take a look in here. So this is just giving you the p-value, the equation, and the coefficient term, value, standard error. So a subset of what you see in the Describe Trend Model. This can also be copied. We're going to go ahead and close it. We're going to right click again. We don't need to edit all trend lines. We could. Let's go ahead and click on there just so you can see that. So we can change the model type. We can put in factors. Under options, we're seeing tooltips when we hover over the trend line. And if there are multiple colors on our visualization, we could allow a trend line per color. And then we had the show recalculated line default before. We don't need to see confidence bands in here. You saw bands earlier when we did a distribution, but we don't need to show those here. And we'll OK, and then right click one more time, and we'll go to Format. So if you want a different trend line type, or a thicker line type, you can do all of that. You can also give it a color if you want it to. I'm going to make mine the wider dashed line, or the wider dashed line. It doesn't seem to want me to do that. Well, I guess I'm not. So I'm going to just get out of there. Go ahead and save your workbook. And now we're going to use distributions. We're going to create a new visualization for this. So go ahead and bring up a new sheet, and you want to drag ship mode and ship date to columns. We're going to right click on the year of ship date, hover over more, and select weekday. Then drag the orders count measure to the rows shelf. And on the marks card, we're going to change automatic to bar. Let's edit the title. And it's going to be count of orders by ship mode per day of week or by day of week. And let's change our column bar colors. So along with our regular formatting here, we're going to make that dark green. And go ahead and give the sheet our light gray shading. Let's name the sheet tab distribution band, and then get to your analytics pane on the left. Under custom, we're going to grab our distribution band, and we're going to do a distribution band for each pane. So drop it on pane. So each pane represents a ship mode. So it opens up the dialog box, and where it says computation, we're going to do the drop down. And on the left side, it defaults to percentages, but this time we want to look at percentiles. So we're going to select percentiles. And then over on the right, it defaults to 95. We're going to do the drop down, and we're going to select enter one or more values. So it allows us to put our values in that box. And we're going to type 25, comma, no space, 50, comma, 75. And we can click away from that box, and you see that it added it to our values. So the label by default is computation, sorry. And you can see where the 75th percentile is, 50, 25, so on and so forth. Now it's using a dark gray fill, which is fine. The tooltip will be automatic. You could do a custom one if necessary. And we can click, and you have a recalculated band as well in here for highlighted or selected data points. And we'll click OK. So now we see the distributions across the panes, right? So for standard class, Monday looks like it's the one that reached up beyond the 75th percentile for the day of the week. Let's look at something. If I'm in the standard class pane and I hover over this distribution band, it tells me that the 50 percentile would equal 184. If I go into the second class pane and I hover, the 50 percentile equals 59. That's because it's calculating within each pane. And so we decide, okay, let's see what it looks like at the table level. So I'm going to right click on any of those bands and choose edit. And at the top, I'm going to change the scope to entire table, leave the same percentile values, and click OK. So now this is where it's putting the distribution bands, right? And it has the values. So if I hover down here, 25% equals 27.5 here. 75% is equaling 151. So it's level setting it for the entire table. Now, if you select a mark, I'll select this mark. So it's showing you, this is how it does the recalculated, right? It has that mark highlighted and it's saying 75 percentile here. And if you click anywhere, then you'll get everything else the way it was. Let's edit it again and change the calculation. Let's do our value dropdown. We'll leave it on table and change it to percentages. And it's based on the count of orders. And we're going to change the percentage values that are in that box from 60 to 80. Let's try 25, 50, 75. And click away. And click OK. Well, now look at how it changed the scale over here, right? So totally different numbers. And it looks like 25% of total is starting at 806.5. So we would have to change these distributions, or we'll just change it back to percentiles. So make that change back to percentiles, and that was 25, 50, and 75. Let's go back into Edit. And with this box open, you can see the changes, just so you can see you can make choices about the way you like it to look. So I'm going to choose Fill Above. And notice how it fills all the way up to the top of the visualization. Because these are checkboxes, I can have multiples. So I'm going to also choose Fill Below. And I think that looks a little bit better. You also have symmetric and reverse checkboxes there, depending on what it is, the way you want it. So I'm going to just leave mine with Fill Above and Fill Below selected and click OK. We've been very consistent with our formatting choices using the the light gray background at the sheet level. But this might be an instance where you would want some color. So we're going to go in and format our distribution band. And where it says reference distribution under that section, we're going to go to our fill dropdown, and I'm going to choose stoplight at the top. So for me, looking at this, it's more interesting and it gives me more insight because of the coloration. It makes it easier to read, so to speak. So, and it's still kind of in line. I mean, they're complementary colors to our labels and stuff like that, the dark green. So I think it works well on this type of a visualization. Let's go ahead and save the workbook. Before we get into forecasting, I want to take a few minutes and go over some slides with you. The slides contain definitions, some forecast options, and forecast result options that you should know about before we start the next exercise. So forecasting is used to forecast future values over a time series. And the model that's used in Tableau is exponential smoothing for forecasting. So that means that the models iteratively forecast future values of a regular time series of values from weighted averages of past values of the series. The exponential smoothing model gives more weight to more recent values versus older ones in your data set. You'll see two other terms, confidence interval and seasonality. For the confidence interval, the forecast model has determined with n% probability the estimated values of the measurement will fall within that area for that given period. So 90% probability, 95% probability. And then seasonality is the predictable variation in data over a period, for example, week, month, or quarter. On this slide, we're talking about configuring forecast options. So the first option you'll eventually see is the forecast length, and that determines how far into the future the forecast extends. The choices for forecast length are automatic, exactly, and until. When it's set to automatic, which is the default, Tableau will determine what the length is based on the data in the view. When it's set to exactly, it will extend the forecast for the specified number of units, for example, 5 years. And for until, it will extend the forecast to the specified point in the future. So those are your forecast length options. And then you have source data options. Aggregate by specifies the temporal granularity of the time series. It defaults to automatic, where Tableau chooses the best granularity for estimation. This will typically match the temporal granularity of the viz, which is the date dimension the forecast is based on. It is sometimes possible and desirable to estimate at a finer granularity if the time series in the viz is too short to allow estimation. Then you have ignore last, and that specifies the number of periods at the end of the actual data that should be ignored in estimating the forecast model. I believe it defaults to the last one period. Forecast data is used instead of actual data for these time periods. You use this feature to trim off unreliable or partial trailing periods which could mislead the forecast. Then you have the option to fill in missing values with zeros. So if you are missing values in the measure you are attempting to forecast, you can specify that Tableau fill in these missing values with 0. The second part of configuring forecast options, we're going to review the forecast model and forecast summary. For the forecast model, that determines how the forecast model is to be produced. Your choices there are automatic, where Tableau determines what is to be the best of all models, automatic without seasonality, and it would be the best of those without seasonality as a consideration. And then you have a custom option, which is used to specify the trend and season characteristics for your model. The choices for trend and season are none, additive, and multiplicative. When you select none for trend, the model does not assess the data for trend. When you select none for season, the model does not assess the data for seasonality. An additive model is one in which the combined effect of several independent factors is the sum of the isolated effects of each factor. You can assess the data in your view for additive trend, additive seasonality, or both. And then you have multiplicative, and that's a model in which the combined effect of several independent factors is the product, not the sum. Additive is the sum. Multiplicative is the product of the isolated effects of each factor. You can assess the data in your view for multiplicative trend, multiplicative seasonality, or both. And then at the bottom of the forecast options dialog, you have a forecast summary, which provides a description of the current forecast. And it will update whenever any of the forecast options are changed, and you'll see that as it happens. And last but not least, before we get hands-on, this slide is showing forecast result options. So it defaults to actual and forecast, which show the actual data extended by forecasted data. Your other options are trend. It will show the forecast value with the seasonal component moved. Precision will show the predictive interval distance from the forecast value for the configured confidence level. The precision percent shows precision as a percentage of the forecast value. You have quality, which shows the quality of the forecast on a scale of 0, which would be the worst, to 100, which would be the best. The upper prediction interval shows the value above which the true future value will lie, confidence level percent of the time, assuming that you're working with a high quality model. The lower prediction interval shows 90, 95, or 99 confidence level below the forecast value. You have indicator, which will show the string actual for rows that were already on the worksheet when forecasting was inactive, and estimate for rows that were added when forecasting was activated. And then you have none, do not show any forecast data for this measure. I just wanted you to have all of that in the background. Again, you can use this for future reference, but you will see these terms and things when we go hands-on in just a moment. Let's go ahead and create a new sheet for this, and go ahead and name the sheet tab Forecasting. And we're going to drag order date to columns and sales to rows. And then if you look up at the toolbar where it says standard, let's do the drop down and select entire view. Let's make our line green, dark green. So I'm going to use color in the marks card and make it dark green. And then let's go to the label box on the marks card and check show mark labels, and then go down to the font drop down and make them bold. Now we're ready to add our forecast line. Now we could go to the Analytics tab. We could go to the Analysis menu. But what we're going to do is we're going to just right click in our view and hover over forecast and choose show forecast. And if you look to the right, you have a forecast indicator, which is showing actual versus estimate. Now let's go up and right click on the year of order date in the column shelf, and let's make that a continuous field. If I hover over my forecast, it's letting me know that it's an estimate, right? It's giving me the year of the order date and the sales. So this is doing 2022. And then it's given it to me for 2023. So it's only given me 2 years of a forecast. We're going to change that. Now we're going to adjust some forecast options. So I'm going to just right click on my forecast, hover over forecast, and choose forecast options. So here is where you have your forecast length. Next 5 quarters is what automatic chose. Let's do the option button for exactly and change it to 5 years. We want a 5-year forecast. So you're noticing that the entire forecast area expanded. If you look down at the bottom of this forecast options dialog, you'll see the forecast summary. So it's currently using source data from January 1st, 2019 to July 1st, 2022 to create a forecast through September 30th, 2027. It's looking for potential seasonal patterns every 4 quarters. So every year it's looking for that seasonal pattern. That's kind of how that is working. If you look at the source data, it's aggregating by, it's choosing automatic, and it's doing quarters. And you have the drop down there where you could change it to another time period. If you wanted more granularity, you could do that. I'm going to leave it on quarter. By default, it's ignoring the last quarter before it started the forecast. So I'm going to change that to ignore the last 2 quarters. Maybe our last 2 quarters data is not really good at this point, or it could be incomplete, and you wouldn't want to include that in your forecast. I'm also going to tell it to fill in missing values with zeros, although I don't think we have any zeros in our data. And then you get to your forecast model. So it says it's set to automatic. It automatically selects an exponential smoothing model for data that may have a trend and may have a seasonal pattern. And we could leave it like that, or we can do the drop down next to automatic, and we can choose automatic without seasonality, or we can choose custom. And when you choose custom, That's where you get your trend and season. Both of them are set to none, but you can set either or to additive or multiplicative. So I'm going to set my trend to additive, and that means that it's adding things. And notice how my forecast changed. And I'm going to set the season to additive. So both of them are additive, and it changes each time you make a change here. Underneath that, you'll see show prediction intervals, and it defaults to 95%. And that's describing like your confidence interval. So the forecast model has determined with 95% probability the estimated values of the measurement will fall within that area for that given period. So 95%, you could kind of use the word accuracy at this point in time. And if you uncheck show prediction intervals, you'll see that that banding goes away. Check it again. And so this is your prediction. The shading around your forecast is your prediction interval. If I do the drop down next to 95% and I choose 90%, it shrinks. If I go to 99%, it grows. We're going to put it back on 95%. And go ahead and click OK. We're going to right click on our forecast again, hover over forecast, and this time we're going to choose describe forecast. So you have two tabs at the top. We are on the summary tab, and it's letting you know the options used to create forecasts. It's using the year of order date as its time series and the sum of sales as its measure. The forecast forward 20 quarters, forecast based on dates, ignore the last 2 quarters, and the seasonal pattern is a 4-quarter cycle. And then you have on the bottom sum of sales, the initial, and it's showing like the calculation there. Change from initial during this period, the seasonal effect, both the high and the low. And then you have your trend and your season and your quality. Now in the lower right hand corner, you can check show values as percentages. And so the values that were there are now showing as percentages. And I'm going to uncheck that. And let's go up to the models tab. And you're seeing that we selected additive, right, for the trend and the season. And then these are your quality metrics and your smoothing coefficients. And both of these tabs can be copied to the clipboard in the lower right-hand corner. Let's go ahead and close. And now you'll see the forecast result options. So if you notice, sum of sales, both in the rows shelf and in the forecast indicator, they both have that diagonal pointing arrow on the right side that indicates that it's a forecast going on. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click on sum of sales in the rows shelf, and we're going to hover over forecast result. So it defaults to actual and forecast, which is what you're seeing on your screen. If you select trend, you'll see it displays more as a trend line. And if you hover, you can see the forecast indicator that it's an estimate and it's showing the trend of sales. And if you look at your rows shelf, it says now trend of sum of sales. We're going to right click again, hover over forecast result, and let's choose precision. So precision is showing the prediction interval distance from the forecast value for the configured confidence level. And I believe we have 95%, right? So it's showing the distance in intervals based on that confidence level. And we can right click and it updates up here to precision of sum of sales. We can right click again and feel free to look at the other forecast result options that are there. When you're done, go ahead and put it back on actual and forecast. And now we're going to edit the title to say 5-year sales forecast and click OK. And go ahead and save your workbook. In recapping Module 8, adding value to analysis, trends, distributions, and forecasting, we started this module with a definition of trend lines, distribution bands, and forecasts, and an overview of the 5 models of trend lines available in Tableau. We added a linear trend line to an existing visualization, learned how to show a recalculated trend line, and accessed the Describe Trend Model feature. Then we learned how to describe the trend line, edit trend line options, and format it. We moved on to creating a new visualization and added distribution bands for each pane. We edited the distribution bands to table scope and applied fill choices. We ended this lesson by formatting the distribution bands with complementary colors for clarity. Before we began forecasting on a viz, we reviewed forecasting definitions, forecast options, and forecast result options. We created a viz and added a forecast line before adjusting forecast options and seeing the forecast summary update based on the options we selected. We reviewed the described format information and tested a few forecast result options. Thank you for viewing this Tableau introductory course. We're going to review, by way of conclusion, what we've covered in this extensive course. We did some minor formatting prior to Module 6, but this is where we really focused on it. So we started with some formatting considerations and how formatting works in Tableau, and then we went and formatted our visualizations, which adds value to them. Although in Module 1, we created a dashboard, in Module 7, we actually focused more on the details of it. So you learned about dashboard objectives, and then we created a series of vizes for dashboard and story use. We created a dashboard and added interactivity to it, and then we created a story and learned how to note our story points and how to navigate through the story. In Module 8, we learned how to add value to analysis by using trend lines, distributions, and forecasting.